13 alleged members of a violent Chicago street gang charged in a federal racketeering indictment that was unsealed today. They're accused of nearly 40 murders or attempted murders. The U.S. Attorney's Office sharing pictures of 2 of the weapons allegedly used in some of those crimes. Investigators seized 46 firearms and 1,000 rounds of ammunition during this probe. It's a probe that lasted several years.
YouTube, what it is, we back, baby. I know it's late. My bad, my apologies. But I've been working on this video for hours. We going into the rack. Wicked time. You see what's going on. Major indictment. The indictment actually old. But some news just got released about 5 days ago now. And it's, you know what I mean? A lot to talk about. And we're going to dig deeper into the case, because the case is wild. Like the evidence that they got against these boys and some of these allegations. Man, we gonna get into all of that, man. And you know, I only really like talking about stuff like this when it's a teaching moment, where it's something that we can learn from. Because it was so much being said, so many things done. We talking about upwards of 40 murders and attempts. Yeah, like this wicked. Like the city, for real. But before I get into all that, right? Cause you know how the news do. They don't really tell us too much. Check this out. So now you see what we're dealing with. Mega murders. A lot of people. You feel me? A lot of people in killing. It's basically, you know, what we see on the news, what you get from Chicago. You talking about 600-700 murders a year. Well, these guys allegedly was committing a nice portion of them. You feel me? But that was all in the beginning when everybody was staying silent. You know how I do. You feel me? They lock everybody up. Everybody tough Tony. You feel me? Everybody ready rock and roll. But as time start to wind and reality starts setting in, you get guys like Deshawn. Deshawn Morgan was immersed in Chicago's West Side gang culture before he was even out of grade school, dealing drugs at 12 and rising in the ranks of the mafia insane vice lords. Along the way, Morgan told a federal judge last week he befriended key players in the complex hierarchy of gang factions in the city's Austin and West Lawndale neighborhoods. His testimony provided a rare glimpse at the kind of gang conflicts that often drive Chicago violence. He earned respect by adhering to a strict street code against snitches. He got shot and shot others. Was charged with murder in his 20s, only to beat the case at trial, and later ordered the slaying of a friend he believed was cooperating with law enforcement. But Morgan said he was never really interested in being a kingpin, the man at the top with all the heat and pressure that went with it. A self-described master manipulator, he testified Thursday that he was much more comfortable being the guy behind the guy, as one lawyer put it, making moves for himself, not because of any particular gang allegiance. Morgan, now 40, told his harrowing life story at the Dirkskin U.S. courthouse, where 2 of his longtime associates in the Wicktown gang, Donald Lee, 40, and Torrance Benson, 30, are on trial for racketeering conspiracy charges. Prosecutors allege the gang, a faction of the traveling vice lords, was responsible for a string of murders, attempted murders, robberies, assaults, and drug trafficking stretching back more than 20 years. Morgan, who pleaded guilty to racketeering in July, was a crucial witness for the prosecution trying to tie several acts of violence to Wicketown, including the brutal execution-style slaying of Donald Holmes Jr. and Diane Taylor in a car on West Earthington Street in 2018. Attorneys for Lee and Benson, meanwhile, have painted Morgan as an opportunistic liar and psychopath who is only willing to do or say anything to benefit himself, even if it means hurting or killing others. At one point during cross-examination Thursday, attorney Lisa Wood asked Morgan, "You don't care about hurting other people, do you?" "No, ma'am," Morgan replied, before qualifying that by saying it wasn't his goal to bring physical harm to others. "So you do care?" Wood shot back. "Yes, ma'am," Morgan said. Morgan admitted in a plea agreement with prosecutors that he was directly involved in 3 murders, 2 attempted murders, drug trafficking, and a vicious assault on a fellow jail detainee last year. He had faced mandatory life in prison if convicted, but in exchange for his testimony, prosecutors said that they would recommend a sentence of 25 to 35 years behind bars. Morgan, an avid gambler, was shooting dice in the early morning hours of February 1st, 2018, when he received a text message from a gang associate, Darius Murphy. The message, which was shown to the jury Thursday, included a screenshot and an overnight breaking news story from the Chicago Tribune about the double murder on Earthington Street. Morgan said he later spoke briefly on the phone with Murphy, but said he hung up because he didn't want to talk about the murders when authorities might be listening. The next day, Morgan testified he met in person with Murphy, who described in detail how he lured Holmes to a meeting outside his apartment, how Holmes had unexpectedly shown up with Taylor driving the car, and how he fired bullets into each of their heads just seconds after jumping into the back seat. "He told me he killed him," Morgan told the jury. "He told me. Holmes had a girl with him, and he killed her too." The shooting had been put into motion by Morgan, who weeks earlier had grown suspicious that Holmes, his longtime friend and drug trafficking associate, had been cooperating with law enforcement, Morgan testified. He said suspicions were heightened after he was pulled over by police in November 2017. Later, after he introduced Holmes to a high-ranking Wicketown member, Markel Russell, police promptly raided Russell's house. "I had sent him to get some drugs from Russell, and right after that, his house got raided," Morgan testified. Prosecutors have said Morgan's hunch was wrong, although Holmes had previously worked as a corroborating source for law enforcement. At the time of the murders, he was actually under a court-approved wiretap as part of the separate federal investigation. But Holmes was marked for death anyway, Morgan said. He devised a plan to have Murphy lure Holmes to a meeting under the guise that he was going to give him a gun and cash that Morgan owed him, according to Murphy. Murphy then enlisted a second person, Damon Brown, to help him do the job. Jurors on Thursday watched video surveillance footage from a nearby hot dog stand showing Holmes, 29, and Taylor, 31, arriving at a meeting place in a dark-colored Jeep Cherokee. A figure could be seen approaching the passenger side and getting in the vehicle before it takes off and then suddenly stops. The person then jumps out and runs into an apartment building where prosecutors say Murphy was living. The jury was also shown graphic crime scene photos depicting the aftermath of the shooting. Holmes' body was still seated in the front passenger side of the Jeep. Resting on Holmes' shoulder was the body of Taylor, her wig cap exposed, and blood pooling on the mat in front of her feet. Both had been shot in the head multiple times, according to testimony. Months later, Murphy and Brown were in Cook County Jail on unrelated charges when they were recorded by a friend who was secretly cooperating with police. Prosecutors alleged in the recording, Murphy allegedly described in detail how Holmes tried to take the gun and cash from him through the open passenger side window, but he insisted on getting in the car. "I say, nah, man. I get in the back seat. Pow, pow," Murphy was quoted as saying. His ex-wife tried to bail out. "I grabbed her by the back of her wig and said, 'Where you going?' Pow, pow." Morgan testified Thursday that Lee was upset with him that he heard about the slayings, but not because the deaths weren't justified. He said it was a dumb idea to have them do it in front of Murphy's house, Morgan said. Morgan said he had paid Brown and Murphy for the hit with the cash and the gun. He also gave Murphy some new shoes because he had blood all over him. The day after the slayings, Brown purchased a Buick LeSabre for $900 in cash and drove to Minneapolis, where he traded a 9mm handgun used in the murders for a different firearm, according to prosecutors. The murder weapon was recovered in February 2018, when a different man was arrested by police in Milwaukee with a gun in his possession. In a record made by a cooperator in the county jail, Brown allegedly said he believed Morgan still owed him money since they ended up having to kill 2 people instead of just 1. It was never supposed to have went how it went, Brown said in one conversation in September 2018, according to court records. The next month, the gang member again recorded Murphy in jail talking about his role in the killings. He said he didn't know Holmes from a can of paint and said the hit was all Morgan's idea. After his arrest in 2021, Lee was asked by an agent with the U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives whether he believes Holmes deserved what he got. Yes, you know why, because Don sighed on that dotted line, Lee replied in the video recorded interview. These streets ain't giving pardons, he ratted. So yes, sir, I do believe that. Murphy and Brown both pleaded guilty to racketeering earlier this year, admitting in plea agreements that each participated in at least 7 murders between 2014 and 2018, including the slayings of Holmes and Taylor. Both Murphy and Brown said they were blessed into Wicked Town in their early teens and helped the gang traffic heroin and cocaine around its base in the 500 block of North Leamington Avenue, according to the plea agreement. Morgan, meanwhile, told the jury that he never actually joined Wicked Town, though he had been friends with Lee and other longtime members for years and often did business with them. He testified that some of the younger members of the gang, including Benson, had a penchant for shooting people during armed robberies without provocation. They basically started shooting everybody they robbed. There really wasn't no reason for it, Morgan said. Morgan also linked to Lee December 2022 slaying of Ernest Pee Wee Moore, a shooting that prosecutors alleged was a crucial step in Lee's ascension to the top of Wicked Town gang. Morgan said Moore's father was a longtime friend of his and Lee's. Shortly after the shooting, Lee confided in Morgan that he felt uneasy about being around the father, according to Morgan's testimony. Morgan also recalled another conversation he had with Lee and the murder of John Forehead Johnson, the then leader of a rival gang faction who prosecutors alleged was killed by Lee in June 2023, solidifying his control over Wicked Town. During the trip to Gurney Mills Mall, Lee was excited to tell Morgan that he had killed Johnson with a gun that had come from Johnson's gang. He killed Forehead with his own gun, Morgan told the jury. He was just laughing and joking about it. And what I tell y'all, it's a lot going on, ain't it? You got the head leader telling on the people he was, had doing all the crimes for him. You got the house getting raided. The Wicked City boys think their man told because the house got raided after he left. Whole time he didn't tell. They kills him anyway. We seeing that happen in the streets. Can't go off a hunch, man. That's why it's a such thing called paperwork. A lot of people innocently are getting murdered because people want to go off a hunch. They don't really want to know for sure. That man is dead and gone. He wasn't even telling. On some street level shit. You feel me? We know how the streets go. And once you make that rule, you can't bring that back. That man gone and the girl was gone. So that's another lesson. Women, ladies. I know we all like street niggas. I get it. You know what I mean? Niggas nice, cool, slick. You know what I mean? I understand. But you gotta know it's different levels of street. And some of these guys that you might be interested in, they really living like that. They really got ops. It's really on sight when they see them. And you don't want to be in that line of sight, man. When them bullets get to fly, they don't got names, I promise you. Anybody can get hit. You heard the man, he didn't even want to go that way. But he was paid. It was a time in the past where, they might wouldn't have did it that day, but that's the past. We living in the present. Nowadays, they don't care. You gotta adapt. You gotta adjust. Is it right? Hell no. Because at the end of the day, they both was innocent. The man and the girl. They both ain't do nothing. Then you got the jailhouse rats. I don't know why people keep going to jail talking. Now I get it. He thought that was his man. But these guys that do that, yo, all you got to do is let them talk. If a person come to you, because this is what they did to me. A person basically came to me and was trying to lead me to talk about my case. Knew things that he shouldn't know because I ain't tell nobody. Asked me questions like how many people I'm locked up with. Where'd you get that from, my brother? Who told you that? I'm on this tier alone. So what leads you to believe that I'm in here with other people? You gotta be mindful of that, man. They're not slick as they trying to be. I'm telling you. But a lot of times, you know, people go in there and they want to brag like it's something cool to be locked up for a murder, yo. But a lot of them murderers don't come home. Yeah, you got some that slide through the cracks. But you also got some that come back to the tier after court in real tears. I'm talking about crocodile, boo-hooing. So we got to stop going there talking about my cases, talking about our cases, man. Shout out to my mother, man. She told me that day one. I probably wouldn't even be here today if she didn't give me that information. But we have seen this on numerous occasions and people keep doing it. When you're facing big boy charges and facing a whole bunch of time, the best thing to do is go in there and lie. I'm in here for grand theft auto. They don't need to know. They ain't the ones helping you fight it. They ain't getting you no bail. They ain't even sending you commissary, man. These dudes just trying to infiltrate. That's it and that's all. But then you got my man, Deshawn Morgan. What's up with y'all? You the head of the game. You told to get 35 to 25 years. At 40 years old, that's life regardless. He might as well went in there with respect. At least he'd have died honorable. Yo, because, yo, for every action there's a reaction, yo, and everything you do have consequences. So when you out here living like that, I prefer you to not to. But if you are, you gotta keep that in mind, man. You don't get to do all these things that you're doing. And then when you get put in that jam, you fold. But you was just on the streets letting it all hang out. You was the man. You was showing off. You was cocky. I don't respect that, man. Now, these guys, 40 murders. I don't think they committed all of them. One thing I know about the police is they'll add some charges on there. They'll clear the books if they can. Because for the most part, they ain't investigating everything. No, at this point, you talking about 40 murders, they can slide some in there that them boys ain't had nothing to do with. It ain't that hard. But you talking about Chicago, 600-700 murders a year. This went on for like almost a 10-year time frame. These boys was taking a bite in the crime. But I wonder one thing. I wonder if crime went down when they got these guys off the street. Because that's Charleston White message. I seriously doubt it. We still see Chicago murder rate going through the roof. But how y'all feel about this story, man? It's a lot to learn, man. And that's why I speak on things like this. Not to glorify, because if you notice in every one of my videos, I'm trying to drop some type of game, some type of knowledge, something that people can learn from. And this is just another occasion, man. But let me know how y'all feel about this in the comments.
Baltimore, bitch, I'm rapping Baltimore. Young street nigga, dope boy, I come from Baltimore. Young niggas be shining on them dirt bikes, we be wildin', sellin', scramble all the houses. About to hit the block, you know it's trapping time. Gotta watch what I say, cause they might tap